Okay, happy Monday. As you can tell, maybe for the backdrop, I'm in Studio B just for today only. We're up here for the weekend. It's been a nice trip. We did some hiking and whatnot. Shadowdark has been in the news once again. They won a bunch of Ennies, a bunch, and it's caused folks to I don't know if rediscover is the right word, but it's brought attention back on the product. I think there's a game jam somebody told me about having to do with kind of a pulp inspired Shadowdark adventures. I'm gonna check it out. But something in some of the conversations that were popping up, at least that I ended up peeking in on, were a bunch of why are people hating on Shadowdark? Why are people loving Shadowdark? Why is Shadowdark getting so much attention? Kind of just brought back kind of all the Shadowdark conversations that I guess was having during the Kickstarter. But now, of course, Shadowdark is out there in the wild, and people have had a chance to play it and either appreciate what it's bringing to the table or not appreciate it. So the conversation's changed a little bit. But one of the things and one of the topics that I heard was folks commenting, at least a few folks commenting how much they really liked the way that Shadowdark presented monsters. So I thought this was interesting. I do not own Shadowdark. What you're looking at here on the screen is, I think, their kind of quick start. I'm assuming that whatever monsters are in here, they're not doing something drastically different in the core rules, but someone can let me know if I'm mistaken. And I thought it might be fun, interesting. See, we can glean from things to look at some of the way that different products, old and new. Well, really, the representing the new is going to be Shadowdark, and then what you see over here on the other side is Old School Essentials. Now, Old School Essentials is very much a direct retro clone, so it really is trying to give BX. But you'll notice because I have the BX PDF lined up as well as actually I have BECME and the basic the BX version rules. I also have at least some of the BECME. I think I have the expert set of BECME, which has some monsters in it, and then I have the Monster Manual First Edition, all digitally in place, so we can check them out. We can check them out and just kind of see. And me myself, I was curious as well. What is Shadowdark presenting that people seem to be appreciating, and is there something that we could look at and say, oh, this is something that maybe I should add to my own monster stamp blocks because it's useful, or okay, if they just kind of like this format, or whatever the deal is. I did look ahead a little bit just in terms of I download the rules and I pulled up, at least to start, some bandit stat blocks. We could kind of compare and contrast how these different things are doing. Different books are doing bandits. Some of the monsters are not gonna, like Aboleth right here. I was just gonna look that one up. I couldn't find it in the monster manual. It's probably a Fiend Folio, which I do actually have somewhere. I could probably try to search that up. I can drag my thing offhand. I was just thinking about that. I couldn't find Aboleth, but maybe Aboleth is, and I know I have a physical Fiend Folio, but it's not here. I don't know if I've purchased the digital one, but I know I'd gone through and bought a bunch of them. Oh, I do have it. Haha. I have to say, Drive-Thru, for all its faults, I just love the fact that I can always have access to these things digitally. Hopefully it'll never go away. I probably should make sure and back up everything that I've downloaded. All right, so let's just see if Aboleth is there. And it's not. Oh, okay. Well, maybe we'll have to use it for something else. It's not there. I thought maybe it would be there. Oh, well. I don't know when. I wonder when. Now it's making me wonder when Aboleth made its first appearance. But that is neither here nor there. So let's look at the bandit. Let's look at the bandit as our bandit. The bandit baseline. Baseline bandit. Should have gotten Daniel on here. We could have had the bandit from the Bandit's Keep baseline. Okay, so bandits. So here, Shadowdark says, bandit, hard-bitten rogue in tattered leathers and a hooded cloak. So then we get the kind of stat block, which I guess we can go through. So they have it sort of, I guess, an inline kind of style. Hey, Drew, I am doing fine for a Monday. Hope you're doing well as well. So, okay, so we have AC 13, leather plus shield. That's fine. HP 4, attack 1, club plus 1, or 1 short bow, range of far. And there's something about, like, I like the, they do the bands of range, which I think can be helpful. Sometimes they can actually get confusing too when you have multiple combatants at different ranges from each other and trying to figure out, well, are you close? Are you far? Whereas it's sometimes almost easier to know, like I'm 30 feet away or I'm 60 feet away. The bands can kind of, I think, can muddy that a little bit, but I do actually I like them for a lot of stuff, but I don't like, which we'll see in some of these, the way that she writes it. I know it's a shorthand. It just, I don't know, something about it I don't like that. I'm pretty sure that's just me. Anyway, short bow has a range of far, they have no bonus with it, and it does D4 damage. Movement is near, which I guess that means they can just move to the next outward band. See, here's again where, like, I like the movement range, like for the ranges of things, but this is a little bit, it feels like it could be confusing. So if somebody is far and I can move near, what does that mean if I'm trying to get to the guy who's far? I mean, I'm sure it's in the rules, right? But just in terms of, for me anyway, I think I would have to spend some time internalizing the stuff. But again, it's not really important. I guess we've got some saving throws here. I guess it doesn't really matter, just the way they're formatted, and we get their alignment. No, yes, alignment, chaotic, right, level 1. Okay. And no, this is not saving throws. This is actually, so we're getting an actual attributes. And I'm not super familiar with Shadowdark, so I'm guessing maybe that they got rid of the numbers and you just giving the bonuses, or whether they're doing the bonuses for shorthand. I'm not sure, but we get that here. For some reason, I had saving throws in my mind. But yeah, it's strength, dex, con, intelligence, wisdom, charisma, alignments, chaos, level 1, and then they have a note here: ambush, deal an extra die of damage when undetected. So you think, right, easy peasy, all good. A couple of things I'm noting kind of straight off that we're missing. We're not getting a number appearing, which we're not going to get across all the rule sets. I think we're going to get it in the monster manual. It does look like it is in OSE. I can see it here. So I'm guessing it's also going to be in the BX side. This is going to be very much a your miles may vary, but do you want more information? Because this is going to be great in a dungeon setting. Or let me not say that. You could argue, and probably pretty persuasively, you don't need number appearing, because what you're going to get is when you're doing your encounter table, you're going to create that number appearing. So if it's in a dungeon, you'll say 1d6 or 1d8 or however many, and then you could say if it's a wilderness table, you're going to get 1d or whatever. Just looking at the OSE, right? You get, 1d8 if you're in a dungeon and 3d10 if you're outdoors. Bang, zoom, super easy. And we'll just write that in our encounter table, so then we don't have to worry about that. Or you could look at it, and maybe there's some folks like, no, I like to have that information, because one, it's helpful when I'm creating my encounter tables to have a general idea of how big these bands of bandits get. Presumably, I don't want to do that work. I don't want to make those choices myself, and I'd like to know what kind of the guidance is. Maybe that could be a thing. Like, it's missing, but is it something that is useful? I don't know. A part of it too is how you're going to play your games. For example, playing in Daniel's game, right, which is we're playing a white box, so we're talking 0E original set with chainmail stuff mixed in. The percentage in layer is something he uses a lot. If we have a wilderness encounter and he's rolling kind of randomly stuff and he gets bandits, he's going to use or look for that a percentage chance in layer kind of thing to see if we've in the layer, or if we're, and in fact, I think even in some of the dungeon things where he's rolling random encounters as well, that percentage in layer is going to be useful to him, because he's going to roll, see, are we near the layer or were they just traveling around? That's important. In your kind of game, that percentage in layer might be a total waste, or you may only use it during your preparation kind of setup. So a lot of this stuff is going to be kind of what is important to you. I think the thing to take away from this I get is that stuff is great. This is a really good stat block for in the moment. I think if I'm running a dungeon and I wanted to look and say a module, and it said in this room are, well, I guess 1d8 bandits, and then I go to the bandit stat block. Like, this is perfect for me. Or if I had a wandering encounter in a dungeon bandits, I think it's a little bit less useful to me because it doesn't feel inspirational to me. It's not giving me anything which is interesting. If I were rolling this up as part of a wilderness thing, it's not really giving me a lot of information, but what it is very concise and compact. And I think one of the things that people said about the rules, these monster layouts, is that they like the fact that it gave you there was kind of a special thing. And for them, you got the special thing ambush. Okay. So if they're undetected, and you could, I guess that's I don't know if that's a status in Shadowdark, but you could equate that to if they surprise you, if they could come ambush, then they're going to do more damage. So that's kind of, that's their special thing. I'm going to go to the flip side in terms of verbosity, and we'll come over to the 1A monster manual. How much we got on? Okay, so there's bandits and brigands. I'm going to look at bandits. I think depending on the rules, you don't always get both. I want to say when I was looking at, wasn't the expert set they just had? Did they have? Yeah, so expert, at least the expert set, maybe in basic they would have something else. You just have brigands. Let's see. And then this is the expert set. Beckme also just has brigands. So we get to the monster manual. And now we're getting, it's a very, very, very verbose block of text. We've got up here, which is, it's not laid out quite as neatly or as compactly, but it's the same kind of information. Your treasure type, number of attacks, that you could lay that out in a way to crunch the size if the size was issue, if you wanted to get rid of some of the vertical spacing, you could do that. But essentially it's the same kind of information. Jeremy says they dig the stat blocks, but a little too minimal and plan to adapt some of their own stuff, probably. Stat block powers, tactics, and speed and seeds. Tactics could include number appearing. Yeah, totally. Like a lot of it is, what are you making your things for? Number of appearing and things like percentage in layer are great because they give you sort of prep. It's a little bit of world building, really. What it is you're saying, well, how big do bandit groups in this area get? That's your number appearing. The percentage in layer is kind of like, is kind of similar in that if you have a high percent in layer and they're all over the place, and you're going, wow, there are lots of bandit camps around. Whereas if you had a very low percent in layer, but maybe a high number of potential frequency and number of appearing, that kind of tells you things also. It's a little bit of world building, and they just decide not to do it there, which is fine. It does give you a nice compact thing, but you may look at it and say, well, gee, I like some of the inspiration. And I think sometimes when people are looking back, it's the first edition DMG and the player's handbook and the monster manual, and they look at the kind of Gygaxian verbosity and just the amount of verbiage and whatever you're getting. And I think that sometimes they what's that phrase? Throwing away the baby with the bathwater. Yes, this could be considerably reduced. There's probably information here that's we don't really need, and we might not ever really use. But at the same time, sometimes what I used to love to do is be able to go through a monster man. You could just read it, open up a random page and just read some stuff, and it kind of get inspired. And I don't feel inspired in that way by a bandit. Well, let's read, and I guess let's just read it, right? The proof is in the pudding. So let's go ahead and give it a look. Bandits roam every climb from temperate to subtropical. They travel in groups, generally led by high-level fighters, magic users, and clerics. Those encountered in dungeons will be far fewer in number and often cooperating with thieves. For every 20 bandits encountered, there will be an additional third-level fighter. For every 30, there will be an additional fourth-level fighter. For every 40, there will be an additional fifth-level fighter. And for every 50, there will be an additional sixth-level fighter. Bandits will always be led by an 8th, 9th, or 10th level fighter, and with 6 guards of the 2nd level fighting ability and a lieutenant of 7th level. These 8 bandits are also in addition to the numbers indicated by the dice. To determine the level of the bandit leader, use the following guide. If under 100 bandits are encountered, the leader will be 8th level. If 100 to 150, the leader will be 9th level. And if 150 or more, the leader will be 10th level. For every 50 bandits, there's a 25% chance that there will be a magic user of 7th, 8th, 9th, or 10th level. I'm going to skip the parenthetical there. All right, so you roll a 4-sided die for level. In addition, if there are 200 bandits, there will always be a magic user. For every 50 bandits, there's a 15% chance that there will be a cleric of 5th or 6th level with an assistant of 3rd or 4th level in addition. Bandit lairs will be informal camps 80% of the time, but 10% will be cave complexes with a secret entrance, and 10% will be regular castles with 1 to 4 light catapults for defense. Bandits will have from 2 to 20 important prisoners in their lair, as well as 5 to 30 camp followers or slaves. Jeremy says that Runehammer Hank was a big influence, wasn't he? You see a lot of his creative DNA in Shadowdark, lots of tables reminiscent of ICRPG, very story-driven approach with his stuff, in their opinion. I don't know. I'm not super familiar with Runehammer Hank. I did read through Index Card RPG, but it's been a while. Maybe I'll have to do another video. It might be a good read. I appreciate the thought, because maybe that'll do something with looking at a little bit of Index Card RPG with Shadowdark. If I can get a hold of the Shadowdark core rules, that would be great. It's not in the card screen right now. Ages ago, I did reach out to try to get a review copy, but I never heard back. But of course, if I was Kelsey, I probably wouldn't bother with me either. I don't know how much I rate, especially given that she has all the big influencers in this particular bathtub are already kind of on the Shadowdark bandwagon. So why send it over to me, kind of thing. But maybe I'll try to get a hold of it again at some stage so I can do a true comparison, because right now I'm limited to whatever these quick start rules are. Noric Sigma agrees as a very ICRPG influence to Shadowdark. If I win the new Shadowdark Game Jam, I can get a free copy. It might be fun to do. I got so much stuff to catch up on, but if there's something I was working on that I could convert to Shadowdark, I might do it just for fun, not really to try to win the thing. But that's cool. Okay. So what do we get from this Bandits entry in the Monster Manual, in Monster Manual Prime, the original Monster Manual? It's very heavy on verbiage. A lot of this could have been condensed down to probably a much fewer set of sentences. Heck, even a table. Oh, you know what? And I forgot. We have mounting armor and arms of the force of bandits. I'm not going to go through the table, but it's list, but it's medium horse. Just you get a whole bunch of different arms and armor and arms combinations and mounts. And then we have a note below that says terrain will vary the percentage of mounted bandits. In hilly and mountainous terrain, no more than 10% of the total would be horsed, while in open country, 90% of the force would be horsed. They have normal chances for having psionically endowed leader types with a party. Whoo, boy. Okay. So now back to my question from a moment ago. What do we have here? Well, it's very, it's laid out in a very, it really, honestly, and I don't know how much to blame them. I know people will say, and I've said this too, hey, got to give them a lot of latitude, because nobody knew what a really, we could look back at it with the history of what role-playing games and role-playing game functional layout and all that stuff. However, it's not like the textbook was not invented at this time. And I think looking at tools you can look at, there's probably better ways to give this information than in these paragraphs, because it's really hard to know what's going on. When you might want to just find something, you kind of got to read through. There's no symbology. There's no, like, a table would be great, right? There's different ways you could lay this out, even just kind of bullet points, something to kind of get a better sense. However, looking past all that, and, part of it is they were not at this point a big corporation, right? They were just starting down the corporate path. This is really the first thing we're looking on, and you can read the books that have come out that will go into all the ins and outs of that. However, a lot of this is about what is the actual composition of the bandits. They're not looking at a bandit like a single bandit. They're looking at the bandits like, okay, you have a stat block for what a single bandit tends to be like, which is this. And now we're giving you a whole lot on how bandits operate in the world, including their leadership and their what kind of strongholds or settlements they have. What are they riding? What kind of support and leader personnel do they have? And this to me is the stuff that I'm like, ooh, this is really interesting. What does it say about your bandits that they're led by high level fighters, and there's going to have magic users, and there's going to have clerics, and all that's just baked in to here. Yeah, we don't get an ambush ability. We don't get something that says like, ooh, look, they do this thing. Now, granted, I'm wondering in terms of and we'll look at some other monsters, obviously. In terms of special abilities, that one's kind of weak, because I think if you get ambushed and you get basically a free, remember, classically, if you got surprised, they've got one round basically to do stuff to you. So you're going to be taking, especially if you're out in the wild, a bunch of arrow fire, whatever they're doing, or arrow volleying, whatever. So I don't know. That can be a pretty big advantage. But if you wanted to give them something else, that's fine. I don't dislike it, but it's not I don't know, that ambush ability doesn't make me go, ooh, but whatever. It's going to be very, again, your mouse will vary. Hey, Mark. But what we get is a whole bunch of stuff about how they're composed, where they're living, even sort of how their composition might change depending on the terrain they're found in. And then this stuff about, they're going to have a magic user and they're going to have maybe a cleric and an assistant and whatever. You could see a lot about there. He's giving you this sort of overview of almost bandit society in a way. He's not telling you whether that's a democracy or a dictatorship, whatever, but just by giving you this kind of like, okay, we're getting this feel about bandits. Man, some of them are going to have a castle right, that they could be in. Some of them are going to be in a cave complex with a secret entrance. Like all that stuff is kind of useful. Now, we don't get that in the Shadowdark one. And I would say it's not necessarily a bad thing, but they're different, right? I certainly like, in terms of the Shadowdark, just get this little blurb. But to be fair, that's all you're getting, right? The Monster Manual is giving you that blurb, and then they're giving you a whole bunch of other stuff. Now, I think it would be a fair point that, like, maybe saying this is too much. I think I would probably simplify some of this. I mean, it's cool, but in the moment, I don't want to necessarily have to roll all those dice. I don't want to have to stop the game to go, hold on, let me find out how many are mounted, how many are this, how many are that. And then I got to go find what that does to all their stat blocks, if they're on chainmail and shield versus leathers. All that stuff kind of affects their AC. It affects a lot of things. Maybe, of course, we could also lay this out better to maybe just put those stats in there so that you don't have to do that. Right, there are some ways to kind of mitigate some of these challenges. But it's an interesting, different approach. If we cut over and compare what's going on with OSE, it's much closer to Shadowdark, frankly. So you get a little blurb about thieves who live by robbery for a bandit. Okay, we do get number appearing. Hey, Ian, we do get their we get saving throws here. I mean, you could also just use the thief one, right, as a very, very shortcut. But here, I'm using their online SRD version, so maybe in printed form look different. And I don't know that there is a Shadowdark online SRD. Maybe in that situation they would make things less compact, but I don't have it, so I don't know. And then we kind of get the idea of a little bit of things like, hey, trickery. They use disguise or trickery to surprise victims. Leader, they may have a leader of second level or higher, and human class. And horde only have a treasure type A when encountered in their wilderness lair. So a couple of notes. I don't know if the trickery is kind of like that ambush ability, but it gives you at least, if ambush gives you an idea, I don't know if whether you need it or not. Hey, bandits are going to try to ambush you, and they should be trying to ambush you. Great. Do you need that? I don't know, but of course there is a mechanical effect of Shadowdark. And here, kind of similar, they're going to use disguise or trickery. Maybe that's helpful to you or useful. Maybe it's not, but it's there for you. And then you get the idea of a leader. If we switch over to the expert set, it's similar to the Monster Manual. Remember, the Monster Manual came out, even though, right, if we look at the lineage, BX came out after. So the Monster Manual came out in 1978. I want to say it was actually the first book of the AD&D line. It kind of came out right after Holmes. And then the rest of the AD&D books came out shortly thereafter. And then 81 was when this came out. So this, even though they're sort of following different paths in terms of development, in terms of the timeline, the Monster Manual stuff existed already before this came out. So presumably there could be borrowing some of this. But what we get from Brigands, and of course the other idea is this was going to be somewhat, I don't know if they really designed it to be somewhat simplified, but we're not getting a lot of that detail in the Monster Manual has been removed, but not as much as like in Old School Essentials. So what they say about Brigands and I don't know if they mean to be different than bandits. Let me see if there's a brigand and a bandit entry. If I go to B, bandit. Oh, they do have two. What does brigand say? So brigand gets more stuff. Outlaws and mercenaries who make a living by raiding settlements and attacking travelers. Okay. So we get a bit more. Footmen, cavalry leaders and commanders, fortified camps and camp leaders. This looks like it's following more the AD&D brigand, but in terms of what BX tells us, brigands are loosely organized outlaws and renegade mercenaries who live by raiding towns and robbing caravans and travelers. For every 20 brigands, there will be an additional second-level fighter who acts as their leader. For every 40 brigands, there will be an additional 4th level fighter acting as commander of the entire group. Let's see. Some of the brigands, 50%, will have leather armor, shield, short bow, and sword. The rest will be mounted on riding horses, wearing chainmail and shield, and carrying swords. The leaders will wear plate mail, carry swords and lances, and ride barded war horses. The DM can have a party meet all foot or all mounted brigands if desired. I appreciate that. Brigands will often band together to make fortified camps of 50 to 300 men. A camp will always be led by a 9th level fighter with an additional 5th level fighter for every 50 brigands. There's also a 50% chance that a magic user of 9th to 11th level will be in the brigand camp, and a 30% chance of a cleric of 8th level. So yeah, they did kind of simplify that. So if you go, say, the full Monty in the 1st edition monster manual, then you come to kind of BX, you get sort of a simplified version. And just to make sure that there isn't a brigand here in case they've got a different one, because I don't want to. Nope, there isn't one. Just got the bandit. And there might be a brigand. For some reason, I thought that, where couldn't I find a bandit? Was it in the monster manual I didn't find a bandit? I just found brigands, or did they have both too? And I just goofed on that. Men, fighter, magic user. No. Oh, they do have a bandit. Wait, where's their bandits? Let's see the bandits. Oh, I was looking at bandits. Oh, they have bandit, brigand in parentheses. Okay, I see. Sometimes you got to futz around with the changing types. So for the difference between a bandit and a brigand in the 1E DMG is alignment. So brigands are chaotic evil bandits. They conform to the characteristic of bandits in general. The brigands will have a cave complex lair 20% of the time and a castle 30% of the time. They will have only 1 to 10 important prisoners, but there will be 20 to 50 camp followers or slaves. They have high morale in combat, so they get a +1 on reaction morale dice. Okay, so for the 1st edition monster manual, brigands are basically chaotic evil, sort of upgraded bandits. And oh yeah, before I forget, the idea of having the important prisoners is really kind of important, because that's, adventure hook right there. There is a big one there for you that they might have. Important prisoners means those are VIPs. Those are people for whom they're probably, just in terms of if you're looking at adventure ideas or just money making ideas for a party. If you have important prisoners, there's going to be either rewards for their return or just the payments to return them. So either way, the party can, for whatever reason, the bandits haven't given them back yet. If the party can go in there and get them, then that gives the party something to bring home and get those ransoms or get those rewards, or another way to make out. So it's something that if you're a party and you're aware of, maybe you want to go bandit hunting. I mean, that could be pretty lucrative. Not to mention, if you find their lairs, then you got the I don't know how many of the prisoners would be there versus what they may be carting with them, assuming you're meeting them in transport, or in transit from doing some dirt to getting home. And then, of course, they've got hoards and their treasures that they've been hoarding up in their actual lair. Okay. Oh, Mark, thanks for checking. So Shadowdark has no brigand. Okay. So I was getting as close to apples. So Mark, if you can hear me now, is the bandit, just so I know, because I only have the quick start rules, is the bandit stat block in the core rules about the same as this one, or did they add more info? I'm just curious, just so I can make a caveat if the stat blocks are vastly different in the core rules. Just for my information. I tried to find an aboleth, because the aboleth seemed to be interesting. We'll read the Shadowdark version. I couldn't find it. I'm not sure. I even looked in the Fiend Folio I popped in, and I couldn't find it. So I don't know when the aboleth first makes its appearance. Maybe it's 2nd edition, 3rd edition. Maybe it's another source book. Maybe it's in Planescape or somewhere. I don't know. I don't have it. So we'll look at it, but I won't be able to compare it with anything because I couldn't find it. Let me just take a sip of this. Is just some lukewarm coffee for the working man. Okay, so the aboleth, this is Shadowdark. Enormous antediluvian catfish covered in slime and tentacles. They hate all intelligent beings. I think that's a nice summary. We get the stat block. I'm not going to go through it. Full and free are the same. Okay, I appreciate that, Mark. Okay, so I am comparing as well as I can compare. So that's a nice. Yeah, I got bandit, Ian. I wanted to make sure, because bandits and brigands are kind of interchangeable depending on they kind of go back and forth in the other books. But I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't going to be, that later on I wasn't going to find out that, if I had found brigand, it would have had a bunch of stuff that this didn't have, because I do have bandits. So back to the aboleth. I mean, I like that. I like the it's kind of got some flavorful. It's an antediluvian catfish, which is great. It's covered in slime. It's got tentacles, and it hates all intelligent beings. That's good for. That's pretty much, I think, pretty pithy, short, but you get that feel for what the aboleth is. I'm not going to go through the stat block. We've got it. It's got 2 tentacles. It's got this kind of curse thing going on, and it's got a tail. So now let's get on to the ability. Remember, as I said before, one of the things that was pointed out to me about what people liked about the Shadowdark monster presentations was these kind of, everyone's got kind of a little special thing or whatever, some kind of, I guess, ability. I'm not sure. I didn't get the full details, but something kind of like get a little unique thing about it. So for the bandits, it was this ambush. Okay, because now we're getting to what does the aboleth have? So it has curse. DC 15 con, which I guess is a save you're making, or the target gains a magical curse, turning into a deep one over 2d10 days. That's one ability. Then another one is enslave. In place of attacks, one creature within far. This is what I don't like. I don't like within far. It's just you're creating like what the heck does within? I know what it means, but I just don't like the way it reads. I know what it means. I'm not ignorant to the fact that they mean within the far range, right? Anything that's between either closer than far, maybe, right? Where I get it. I just don't love the way it reads. DC, it of course doesn't stop anything. It's just my preference. DC 15 wisdom or aboleth controls for 1d4 rounds, and then finally telepathic reads the thoughts of all creatures within far. So that's our aboleth. And I think similar to the bandit, you're getting some good stuff for when you're in combat with the aboleth. If you're just using this in a scenario where you're encountering an aboleth, you had it written up in a module, or you decide to stick one somewhere, you plunk it in a cave, in an underground pool, in a swamp somewhere, you've got it. Okay, great. And this is what the stuff it can do in the moment. But there's nothing else. And I don't know how I feel. I guess I'm really debating how much I feel about it. It feels now, granted, okay, it's got 39 hit points. We don't get a HD, right? But we know it's got 39 hit points, which will tell us it's at least it's not a insignificant creature. It's got some powerful effects. I think it's low on the inspiration scale. It's high, and maybe this is just going to be what Shadowdark is giving us in terms of here. And I think it might be part of the design, because it would be totally reasonable to say that, hey, the kind of motivational, inspirational, kind of what is it doing here? What does it want other than that they hate all intelligent beings is going to be in the write-up somewhere else. It's going to be in the write-up in that room. It's going to be in the write-up in the scenario, right? But the inspirational part doesn't help me if I don't have those things, and I just want to. I'm looking for ideas, and I'm looking for like, oh great, this aboleth. It doesn't tell me anything about it. Now I don't have this one. Maybe I could do a quick. Hold on a minute. Maybe. Is this in the SRD? So it must be, because they're using it. I don't have a D&D Beyond account. Is it going to let me see it? I don't think this has much either. I mean, it's big. So I think one of the things, maybe this is a good idea, because we do know that Shadowdark was arisen out of the 5e community, kind of merging with OSR type stuff or old school type stuff. And certainly when you compare the aboleth in this write-up to this one, they're both fairly in the moment. They're not giving us a lot of lore or anything about the aboleth. Like, what is the aboleth? What do aboleths actually want to do? What are aboleths kind of hanging around trying to be? What are they after? We don't get any of that here either. So just to be fair, right? Okay, looking at this, like, I'm not seeing anything about what aboleth kind of wants. I couldn't find it in the Fiend Folio. I couldn't find the monster manual. I couldn't find it. Let's see if I can find one of these monsters. Ian says the inspiration Shadowdark comes from the numerous encounter tables. Okay, we could look at the encounter tables maybe towards the end. We'll go. Now, the Cave Brute. I'm spacing out on which monster that is. What is that? Oh, what is it? I can see it's... I've got the picture of it in my brain, but I'm trying to remember which monster is that. It's got the hulking... No, it's not a demon. Which one is that? That's got the mandibles. You know, I could see the picture in my head. Am I gonna have to go through the whole book to find the picture? Because I've got it in my head and I can't remember what it is called for the life of me. No. Not a demon. No, it's hold on. No, they were still in demons. It's not a demon. No, it's not that. No. I think it's in here. Could be in Fiend Folio also. That's not dragon. Hold on. Riveting streaming as I'm trying to find. Oh, where are you? Umber Hulk. Thank you. Why couldn't I remember? Now, our Umber Hulk's in... Is it in the Monster Manual or is it in the Fiend Folio? Look, there it is. There we go. All right. Back to Shadowdark. So, Cave Brute, a hulking insectoid beast with long mandibles, 4 eyes, and thick arms covered in bristles. Bewilder. Creatures within near that see the Cave Brute's eyes save at the start of their turn or days and no action. So, okay, there's your Cave Brute. Now let's go to the Umber Hulk. Umber Hulks are subterranean predators. Their iron-like claws enable them to burrow through solid stone at 1 foot per turn. No, 1 inch. No, 1 inch per turn. That's that movement speed, right, in inches per turn, and through loam at fully 6 times that rate. Their prey includes young purple worms, ankeg, and similar monsters. However, the favorite prey of Umber Hulks are humans. They attack with claws and their powerful mandibles. Worse still, any intelligent creature which views the Umber Hulk's 4 eyes squarely must save versus magic or be confused for 3 to 12 melee rounds. These creatures have their own language. And then we get the description being that they are black, shading, or Umber Hulks are black, shading to yellowish gray on the front. Their head is gray on top, and the mandibles are ivory colored. Because of their dark color, they can easily be mistaken for some humanoid creature at 40 feet or more distance. So we don't get a whole lot. It's not like we're getting Umber Hulk society and whatnot, but I do like the idea that we get an idea. Hey, these are predators and they love people and they kind of eat stuff, right? We don't get that here, but to Ian's point, we'll have to look at the tables to see. And I don't know what's in. Again, I just have access to the quick start guide. I don't have the full book, so I can only go by what's in here. And I'm not trying to make a definitive judgment. We're just kind of really is all about just kind of comparing and just seeing what things are like. But we get a little bit more about kind of what they do and what they're after than the cave brute, which we do get the same kind of effect, that bewildering effect, which is kind of the same as the confusion, though it's not as nasty because basically it seems like this bewildering just means that 1 turn they can't act. Whereas the Umber Hulk in the Monster Manual, it's 3 to 12 melee rounds. So that's a lot. That's a fair amount of time that you're stuck. I'm going to see if it's in the expert set. I don't know when they first made their appearance. We can check. Oops, I went way too far. Stop trying to scroll up, not zoom in. Yeah, I did go. I went way too far. So W, undead, unicorns, vampire. Yep, not there. I'm going to guess it's not here either. Let's do it. Nope. I found number, but not umber. Yeah, nope. Okay, and that looks like a carrion crawler. The cave creeper. Chittering centipedes the size of horses with grasping tentacles. And they have a toxin DC 12 con or paralyzed for 4 rounds. Is Carrion Crawler in the DMG? Or it's not the GMG, the Monster Manual. We're in Dinosaurs still. It is here. Is that a pretty similar picture? Yeah, I did a good job. All right, what do we get about carrion crawlers? Carrion crawlers strongly resemble a cross between a giant green cutworm and a huge cephalopod. They're usually found only in subterranean areas. The carrion crawler is, as its name implies, a scavenger. But this does not preclude aggressive attacks upon living creatures. For that, ensures a constant supply of corpses upon which to feed or for deposit of eggs. The head of the monster is well protected, but its body is only armor class 7. So this is one of those kind of funky things where they don't really have there's not a choose where you want to hit thing, but there kind of is, because obviously you can choose to attack the head, which we can kind of see here. It's not laid out specifically well. We have to kind of read through, but the head is AC 3, the body is only AC 7. A carrion crawler moves quite rapidly on its multiple legs, despite its bulk, and a wall or ceiling is as easily traveled as a floor. For each of the beast's feet are equipped with sharp claws, which hold it fast. The head is equipped with 8 tentacles, which flail at prey. Each 2-foot-long tentacle exudes a gummy secretion, which, when fresh, will paralyze opponents, save versus paralyzation, or it takes effect. As there are so many tentacles with which to hit and thus multiple chances of being paralyzed, these monsters are greatly feared. Bummer. Thanks for letting me know so I didn't chase around for it. Okay, we'll have to figure out something else to look at. We'll have to look at the encounter tables another time because they're not in the quick start. Thanks for checking. Yeah. Okay. So again, I have to say I do like these descriptions. Now it didn't have to be as long. We could cut it down, but I don't know. I guess just for me myself personally, I like knowing a little bit more. Okay, they're and the name carrion crawler does lend itself a little bit more to, oh hey, it's a scavenger. The name carrion crawlers kind of suggests it's a scavenger. It's not Shadowdark's fault necessarily, but Cave Creeper doesn't have that same vibe. It has a very good, I like it just in terms of it does have some character to it, but it doesn't tell you anything about what the creature likes to do. Fluffy the Griffin, hey Fluffy, says, I never really know how to adjudicate creatures with multiple ACs versus the vast majority that just have one. It is tough, right? How do you let the players know? I suppose you could just say the head is very heavily armored kind of thing. It is tough. And it's something that I wish they were just consistent about. Like, just make a rule. I mean, I suppose you could yourself make a rule. Hey, and you could make some exceptions to the rule, but just say, hey, look, if you're targeting these areas, then the armor class, I'm just going to use descending armor class because that's what they're using and saying here. And hey, it's 4 less, right? So or it's 2 less. In this case, it's armored, so it's another 2 less. You could make some rules to make it less or a little bit easier, but it's tough because some creatures will have in their stat blocks these kinds of notes. Most creatures don't, but they also have different areas. So it's kind of like, well, if you're attacking a cow, why not just chop its legs off? But they don't have different ACs for that, but the carrion crawler does for its head. I don't know. I guess maybe I wonder if it's because the carrion crawler's attacks are coming directly from its head. So the idea being that it makes sense, one, that you might be striking at its head by default because that's where all the tentacles are coming at you. But then if you can get around that, then you're given sort of hey, if you can get around it, you get to its kind of weaker parts. But that they don't want to do that for every creature. It can be difficult. I agree. Bird That Steals say that the first edition is the perfect medium between totally terse and flavorful. The second edition monster manual can get too wordy with the 1 page per monster descriptions. 5e is right out, in their opinion. Yeah, 5th edition, the actions get all this verbiage, but you don't get anything kind of about what they do or why they're around or sort of who are you, Mr. Aboleth, kind of thing. Whereas Shadowdark, granted, the abilities don't require nearly as much language, but it kind of gives you that same thing. But now you're looking at, instead of a whole page or half page, or page really, now you're getting it in a very small, I guess for the Aboleth, it would be up here. Whoops. A very small, compact thing. I do wish that we got a little bit more what Aboleths are. And I'm curious about the tables, because the tables can give you a lot of situationally, but they're not giving you that. it's kind of like what people love about, I guess, the Volo's guide and those kind of things, is giving us a little bit of like, well, what are they doing here? I suppose you can get for an individual aboleth through an encounter tables what that particular aboleth is doing there. But I wouldn't mind having something a little bit more like, hey, this is what aboleths are about. Maybe there's a way to do it just in you could really do it just a couple of, one more sentence, maybe. Enormous antediluvian catfish covered in slime and tentacles. They hate all intelligent beings. And, I don't know, or maybe something about they believe they should be ruling the world, or, whatever. You could come up with some kind of motivation. Or even just that they are cowards and prefer to act through, they are full of scheming, always acting through surrogates that they control, right? Okay, great. And maybe what are they scheming for? You could come up with something. What are they scheming for? And now I know a little bit, because what happens I see a lot of in 5e is someone wanting to ask these questions, like, well, what is the aboleth? I mean, even in terms of a combat encounter, asking like, well, how should aboleths fight? Right? What should they do? And I think you're asking these questions. I mean, one, to be fair, a lot of how they fight is kind of written in here. Well, if you're looking at the aboleth, how should they fight? I mean, just looking at the Shadowdark one, because it's a little bit easier to parse. Even though, yes, they can attack with their tentacles, but you got to kind of be close. So you might not want to do that. Oh, by the way, you're probably in your, you're mostly aquatic. It's hinted here because you're an enormous catfish. Doesn't say they can't walk on land, but their movement is swimming. So, okay, you're in the water. You probably don't want them near to you. And by the way, you can curse people, you can enslave them, and you can read everybody's minds. So you probably want to be staying as far away as you can, enslaving people to do your bidding in the short term, cursing people in the long term, using using your read thoughts ability to kind of understand what's going on and kind of try to probably get away. Having said that, having just a little bit about what their general motivation is as a species will go a long way into helping people understand how to use them in an encounter. Because if you say they're scheming, they're cowardly, and they want to work through surrogates, to me, that gives me a lot to say. Well, if you encounter an aboleth, one, that's probably something the aboleth did not intend, because they don't want to encounter anybody. They don't want you meeting them. They want to be the catfish behind the throne. So that already is probably a big red flag for the aboleth, who might just skedaddle out of there, and probably has many ways to skedaddle out of there. But then it's probably going to be bringing in folks that it controls and not engaging you directly. At least that's how it would kind of speak to me, right? But if you don't, in the absence of it, it can be a little bit like, okay, I have this thing and it's got a cool look and that's cool stuff, but I don't really know what I'm meant to do with it, kind of thing. Excuse me. All right, so Ian, who's I guess must own Shadowdark, which is appreciated, says that Shadowdark's random encounter entries for aboleth, the Deep Tunnels table, 2d6 Beastmen Thralls haul a troll to their aboleth overlord. I mean, that's cool. That's definitely a cool scene, I guess, but I have to see them, because I'm wondering, I always wonder, and maybe I shouldn't, like, well, what's the second time? That's a great first time you meet the aboleth. And I guess there's must be a number of those, right? But it still doesn't, like, I guess what I want to know, or what I'd like to know, Ian, and maybe the answer is just left for you as the GM. Like, what the heck does your aboleth kind of, like, what is it after, kind of thing? Now, granted, we don't get that necessarily. We don't get that from the 5th edition one. But I think things that can kind of give me hints, like the bandits entry, right? The bandits entry doesn't tell me what bandits want, but it does tell me kind of what they have, which then kind of tells me what they want. They're carrying around, they've got prisoners of note, and they're doing this stuff. Oh, it's like, okay, I kind of get it. You understand? Like, that's kind of what I like a little bit. But again, it's just a personal thing. And I can see that if I'm in a dungeon or if I'm using other tools, oh, okay, there's all D100 tables. All right, well, you're going to get a lot of options then. So yeah, I'll have to look at those. That sounds very cool. I will have to look and see, because that sounds nice. I'm switching over here to soda. This is Mandarin Orange Seltzer Water from the Food Club. So yeah, no Spindrift up here. I cheaped out and got Food Club soda. It's actually from yesterday, and I'm trying to be good and drink what I open. So it's a little bit fizzless. There's probably, I have to say, there's probably some middle ground between a super long entry that isn't saying all that much and maybe Shadowdark that's maybe not quite saying, not only that it's not saying enough, it's saying enough. And again, Ian's point, if all of these have these big encounter tables, then that's probably what you're supposed to do. So I would say that what I'm missing just in terms of my analysis here is those encounter tables. I think knowing a little bit more for some of these in terms of kind of what they're doing, what they want. I want to find an intelligent kind of creature. I mean, I know Umberhulks were somewhat intelligent, but they seem to be just kind of scavengers. Because what I like in the monster manual, the Ian pointing out that right, this is what happens when you don't offer that sponsorship. Exactly, Spindrift. See, you got to come around. I like the idea that the monster manual tells us, hey, these are scavengers. Hey, these are hunters. Hey, they're eating people, kind of thing. So when you encounter them, you have an idea of kind of what they want. You read the Umberhulk entry, it's telling you they're not only are they predators, but they like the meat of humankind. So they're probably going to attack you, kind of thing. I want to try to see if we've got, yeah, Fluffy. I don't get paid enough for any brand loyalty. Brand loyalty must be paid for with gifts. I have gotten none. Ian says that, in his opinion, the best thing Shadowdark seems to do consistently is cram as much imagery and vividness into few words as possible. Yes, and I give them a lot of credit for that. Yes, they like for a dryad, a coy emerald-skinned fae covered in leaves it bonds with and protects a tree. See that one? See, I like that one. See, that one does a little bit more because it tells me something about what the heck this. If I have a dryad encounter, that little bit just tells me what is it probably doing. It's probably bonded to and protected a tree. You've probably come to a dryad's grove. And it can be easy to forget that a lot of these mythological creatures, people don't know them. People don't, I remember I did a video on this ages ago because I saw someone asking the question of how to run, what was it? I can't remember. An encounter with some kind of creature. And to me, it was kind of self-evident what should be going on because the creature had a whole mythology. But it was also clear because someone asked the question that they didn't know any of this stuff. So it could be, especially, I feel like now we're even moving further and further away from people who are more or less familiar with a lot of the mythological stuff that I feel like all the kids in kind of my group, or at least that had the same similar interest in me, we all kind of had this sort of groundwork of myths that we'd all read and whatever. Maybe it's just different now. I'm not sure, but you can't count on the fact that someone knows like what a dryad is or what they're supposed to be doing. So just giving that little bit of, oh yeah, this is what it's doing. And I love it. Like Aboleth had that. Like it's scheming to control the whatever, and write it better than I'm saying here, right? It's scheming for world domination, but always through surrogates, something like that, right? With just that little sentence would give me just, ooh, there we go. But we get it here. Let me see if we got something else. Well, let me see. What does the monster manual say about dryads? Assuming dryads are here. I got to think that they are. Because that seems like a first order kind of creature. We can get past all the demons and devils and dinosaurs and jinn and dogs, dolphins, dragons now. Dragons, more dragons, dragons, dryads. Okay, so what do we get for the dryad? Oh, Fluffy, you're writing a book of monsters, or just monsters for a book? Okay, here's what the ADD monster manual says. Whoops, I tried to do that way and it didn't work. Okay. These beautiful and alluring tree sprites are found only in the most secluded places. They are found only near oak trees and never more than 36 inches from their individual tree of which they are actually a part. A dryad is shy and non-violent. Unless surprised, a dryad can disappear by stepping into a tree, slipping out on a side unseen by the intruders, and dimension door to her own tree. Dryad trees are distinguished only by their large size. They do not radiate any magic. If seriously threatened, or if near a male with 16 or greater charisma, the dryad will use her powerful charm person spell which may be cast up to 3 times per day, once per melee round, with a -3 on the victim's saving throw. If a person is taken away by a dryad, there's a 50% chance they will never return. And if they do return, it will be from 1 to 4 years later. Dryads can speak their own tongue, elven, pixie-ish, sprite, and also speak with plants. If carefully approached, they might be persuaded to aid a person or party. Dryads have exact knowledge of the wood or forest in which they dwell. So actually, this one's a really good one. For here, the monster manual packs quite a bit of punch into the text. So we get kind of what they can do, how they're going to operate. Okay, they are not out to attack you, right? They're going to try to probably be just stay out of sight, out of mind. You're not going to be able to know. You're not going to be able to cast detect magic and find their tree. That way, you have to figure it out other ways. But they can potentially be helpful. They speak different languages. So actually, they're giving you a bunch of things here. Now, as to Ian's point, this might all be information that's just presented differently in Shadowdark. Maybe they have a bunch of encounters. But I do kind of like that in the absence of having those encounter tables, or if their encounter tables don't work for you, or they don't fit your situation, you do just have some idea of what they do. Shadowdark gives you probably what I would say is like the basic thing. Bonds and protects a tree. But you don't get the other stuff. You do get the fact that they can charm a creature, and that they can step inside the bonded tree. Though the monster manual version, and it's just different versions here, right? That they actually can step into any tree, and they can kind of dimension door back to their tree. So it's a little bit different, but that's just whatever. Different games, different editions do things kind of differently. But I like that a little bit extra of lore. But again, I think this one's a good one for me because I really do like that it gives that extra bit. It could have stopped with a koi emerald skin fake covered in leaves. Obviously, that wouldn't really tell you much about a dryad. But the idea that it bonds and protects a tree, it's like, okay. I guess with a dryad, it's sort of an interesting case because you kind of have to include something like that. Because that's kind of what the dryad is. It's not just what it's doing. It is what it's doing as opposed to other species that might be, obviously an aboleth is a giant catfish, but doesn't do catfish things. Or maybe it does. Maybe it sweeps garbage off the floor of whatever a river or wetland that it has to be in. But you know what I'm saying. Whereas the dryad's kind of its being and its purpose are sort of one in the same. Oh, Fluffy the Griffin writing a rule system loosely based on ADD. Very nice. And continuing, this is Fluffy speaking. Monsters for a book, and yes, it's going to add some length to the book, but a few sentence or a paragraph isn't too bad. But I'm right. A lot of people, but I, meaning me, as opposed to Fluffy, is right. A lot of people don't know what a dryad is. Yeah, you just got to be aware of it. Where especially here, where you can use it and just something really short and quick to just set people up if they don't know what a dryad is. Like, oh, okay, that's what it is. Let's see. We got the gelatinous cube, Ettercap. I want to see if there's a goblin, deep gnome, a grick, a knight. So some of these, so just kind of going through some of these Shadowdark effects, right? So we get, I'm trying to keep in mind that I don't have the encounter tables in front of me, but something that multiple people mentioned was this idea of the kind of special effects sort of thing. So we go back to the dryad, it's got two kind of, it's got charm, and it's got meld, right? Oh, the dung beetle has knock. The interesting thing is the AD&D book has these in there, right? But the problem with the monster manual, and it's, a product of its time, just the way it's laid out, is a lot of this stuff is kind of hidden away. I don't know. I don't have Osric in front of me. I don't know if that Osric has a monster manual. I don't know if I don't know where it is. It's been a long time since I looked at Osric. But I'm thinking that if somebody took just the monster manual and gave it sort of the OSE, not necessarily in that style, but a similar, just kind of modern layout makeover, I bet you people might be surprised at how much kind of goodies are sort of hidden inside here, because you have to read through some of these voluminous paragraphs to get to them. They could probably lay them out and you go, oh my gosh, I didn't realize all this stuff is in there because it was kind of locked away. And if I only scanned through, then, I miss it. But this is not, I'm not trying to give shade to Shadowdark. I'm really just trying to look at it, but it does remind me of the kind of the things I like. And I guess part of and this is going to be, we all approach these rules, we all approach these games at different times in our lives. for different reasons, for different purposes and where we are. I came to the Monster Manual, I was a kid. And as a kid, this book, was powerful because I could sit and read it. And I had the time as a kid, right? It seems like you have endless time to read stuff and flip through and look through pictures and read these bits. And even if you don't totally understand these bits, all the kind of things that they add to them. So I think I have a nostalgic, I don't think so. I know I have a nostalgic connection to the Monster Manual, despite all the flaws that someone could list. And I wouldn't even, I'm not out there to try to defend it against whatever arguments you want to set up against it. I'm not here to do that. I have a nostalgic connection to it. And part of me, when I look at other monster collections, as I kind of hearken back to that, if me as a younger boy would really kind of get in there and really sort to feel all these things coming into mind. So part of that's my lens. I probably should have said this wrong. That's kind of my lens looking at it. That's kind of that's what I'm doing. When I look at the Shadowdark one, I think as an adult, it does a lot of things that I like. It's very succinct. It's not giving me pages upon pages upon pages that I'm not going to be able to need. It's giving me the stuff that I want kind of right away. I don't have the encounter tables. It seems like those things go hand in hand. I kind of wish they would have put maybe just one or just put 10 in there, D10 as opposed to D100 in there, just so you can get kind of an idea because it seems like some of the functionality is there, that it's really a two-prong attack of encounter table plus monster. I don't have the encounter table, so I can only look at the monster. So as an adult, those things really call out to me. But there are some things that I kind of wish were there a little bit. Number one is that without the encounter tables, this only gives me kind of an in-the-moment look at this monster. It doesn't give me a situation. It doesn't give me kind of a, what are they kind of doing in the world? I don't have any idea of how many fairies are in a fairy in a fairy settlement, or how many bandits are in a bandit camp. I don't have any of that kind of information. I gotta hope that I have the table that's gonna lay that out for me, or I have to think of all myself. And not that there's really anything wrong with me thinking about all myself as a GM. I should be, but it's very nice, as often happens, as often I run into, you don't do all your prep in a your prep is not symmetrical across everything. And so you're prepping over here, and then suddenly in the game, this thing over here happens. And maybe you just had a note that said bandits. And you could, oh my gosh, bandits. And then you go, oh my God, that's the thing they got. And you go, oh, bandits. And you look it up, and then you have, oh, thank goodness, this entry is giving me all the things I need for the bandits in this situation. Now, granted, it might not be laid out the way you want, but it's kind of there. And in the AD&D case, maybe you're getting too much information. You're like, boy, I wish they would have just bottom lined it for me, but it's kind of there. We don't have that with the Shadowdark ones, but maybe it's elsewhere. And I don't know. I haven't read any of the zines. I haven't read any of the Shadowdark kind of materials that are out there. So I don't have a good sense of how they're deploying these with other materials. We do know with AD&D and stuff, where they'll say, hey, 1d4 bandits or whatever bandits. And then you are meant to kind of get most everything else from these entries. And this is obviously seems like working in a different way. And I unfortunately, I can't show it in its full glory because I don't have the book. Well, if he says a little lore can go a long way, as opposed to a wiki article for everything, right? Yeah, I don't need a bunch. I think a little bit is good. Some of this I don't know. Let's just see if there's one more that may be interesting. Giant leeches, ochre jellies, ogres. Oh, a reaver? Does that? A knight in blackened armor riddled with cruel barbs. The other thing is we don't have types here. So I don't know. Is that supposed to be a reaver, supposed to be a revenant? But I don't think revenant is, I guess it's just a black knight kind of thing, or an evil knight. I'm not sure what a reaver is supposed to be. Or a blackguard or something. I don't know. Is there something? I'm kind of curious do we have? What would, if I got to go back to the front? Whoops. What do we have? Do we have some kind of knight warrior type? I don't think it's under men. I'm not sure what that is supposed to be. other than just a not nice warrior. Are there any undead things that we get? Oh, skeleton. There we go. Okay, undead immune to morale checks. All right. Soldier. I kind of like, that's a nice picture. I like it a little bit different, a little bit kind of a Near Eastern style, seems to me. Giant snakes, giant spiders, unicorn, wild hag, wheeled hag, eyes dark as moonless nights, skin made of rotting wood, hair of tangled roots and vines. Drink pain. Near range, save to deal. Wait a minute. Oh, hold on. Do they have to make a save? Do they have to roll? So they have to roll DC 12. So I guess they have to make the check. They have to roll a DC 12 charisma check to deal 2d4 damage to a creature, regain that many HP. That's nice. Shape change, instantly change to look like any other humanoid. That's kind of cool. I like it. What is troll? What do we get for troll in the monster manual? That's one I know we've got here, right? If I go to T. Yes, we've got a troll. Okay. They brought a cave troll. T. There we go. Thought Eater, Titan, Tick, Toad, Trapper, Treant, Triton, Troglodyte, and Troll. This is another classic setup. Hey, Brian. Oh, Ian says, one thing about the Shadowdark Quick Start Guide, it looks like it's missing the named creatures, which is some pretty significant full-page entries. Okay. Well, I guess I'll have to do another one of these with the 4 core rules, or at least go into some of the other ones with the core rules, but I don't have it, and if I wait, I'll forget. So I'm doing it now with what I got. So apologies for not having a full Shadowdark experience. All right, so trolls. So we get from Shadowdark trolls, green lanky giants with warty skin and territorial rage. That's a nice one. I like that one. That one's good because you do get at least some idea of like, okay, they're very territorial and they rage, and they lair in deep forests and swamps. That's really good. It wouldn't be bad to have one more line in there. I feel like they eat men or they kill whatever, or they, something like that would be cool too. But that's good, right? We know we get some really good stuff about them. We know where their lairs are. We know they're territorial, and we know that they're going to get angry. Now here we get trolls from the AD&D. Trolls are horrid carnivores found in nearly every clime. They are feared by most creatures, as a troll knows no fear and attacks unceasingly, kind of the rage, hence the rage. Their sense of smell is very acute, their infravision is superior, and their strength is very great. I don't think we get, and it's, I'm not trying to compare these like to like, because Shadowdark isn't trying to be AD&D, but I'm just curious, they don't have any special sensory type powers. They just have the regen. Okay. A troll attacks with its clawed forelimbs and its great teeth. The troll is able to fight 3 different opponents at once. 3 melee rounds after being damaged, the troll will begin to regenerate. Regeneration repairs damage at 3 hit points per round. This regeneration includes the rebonding of severed members. Ugh. The loathsome members of a the rebonding of severed members. The loathsome members of a troll have the ability to fight on even if severed from the body. A hand can claw or strangle, the head bite, etc. Total dismemberment will not slay a troll, for its parts will slither and scuttle together, rejoin, and the troll will arise whole and ready to continue combat. To kill a troll, the monster must be burned or immersed in acid, any separate pieces being treated in the same fashion, or they create a whole again in 3 to 18 melee rounds. All right, so there you get some good stuff. And then we get the description. Troll hide is a nauseating moss green, mottled green and gray, or putrid gray. The writhing hair-like growth upon a troll's head is greenish black or iron gray. The eyes of a troll are dull black. It is the OG T1000. Yep. Oh, yeah, there you go. Troll 1000. Very good. So, yeah, so here a little bit different. It's not as strong. I mean, this is kind of the modern thing. I feel like some of the things that Shadowdarks bring in is sort of the modern lessening of abilities. So here it'll regenerate unless you cauterize runes with fire acid. That's not what the 1E, the old school version of troll, you can cauterize the heck out of it. You have to just burn it up. Just cauterizing it is not doing it, right? You got to do it. Now, whether you could, the problem, or not the problem, but, you know, can you reduce some of that good stuff in here to something really small to fit in here? Maybe not. So you just have to regenerate, maybe make a note kind of thing. But it's good stuff. I think all in all, I mean, I do really like what Shadowdark has done. Like I said, I think if I could ask for, hey, what could I like a little bit more? I think about different ways I'm going to use these, and I think these work great for your dungeon. Hey, you kind of in the dungeon. You don't get the numbers, but you probably have that in you know, you can get that elsewhere. But I think in my let's say if you're doing kind of hex crawly stuff, it's going to take some more work because you don't have that idea of where do they lair, how, you know, what kind of stuff is in their lair. I don't see a note here about the treasure, how treasure is done, and maybe treasure is just done differently in Shadowdark. I don't know. You know, that a percentage layer or something similar would be cool, or how many are in their kind of family groups or something like that would also be, you know, kind of good. And so I'm missing a little bit of that. But all in all, I think it does a good job. I just think it does something in a very different way. I think it definitely, the appeal is to the adult part of my brain. The adult part of my brain looks at these and like, oh yeah, really clean, put together nicely. Sure, I can be down with, okay, you got a couple things that are highlighted. This is what they do, or this is kind of what they have. Great. My nostalgia sort of kid part is like, man, I wish they kind of gave me a little bit more, even if it's just kind of odd stuff, because that odd stuff is often where you can kind of get really fun ideas. But as Ian's pointed out, that maybe that comes in the tables. An artificer enhanced troll encounter. Oh, yeah. Can you imagine? I mean, you would think, and I guess trolls, because weren't there? What is that? There's what was it? It's not the oh shoot, what is it? What creature is it that's like a troll merged with a, what's that one? It's an undead kind of thing. But they've done that, but they made it. I guess what I'm saying is I could definitely see a magic user using trolls for experiments because of their regeneration means that you can iterate on a lot of stuff horrible to the creature, but iterate and have very little fear that you're going to kill your subject because they are going to regenerate. Okay. So for treasure, Shadowdark has a D100 treasure table for monsters split into some level bands. I got you. But how do you know what level these monsters are? And it doesn't say. Oh, it does say level. That's at the very bottom, level 1. Okay. Oh, okay. So we do get some idea of kind of an HD sort of thing. I missed LV. I just missed it. All right. Well, I don't know if this was useful to anybody. It was fun for me to go through. Should I look at what troll is? Let's just read troll from the expert set, just because I kind of got focused on the kind of AD&D thing. But let's see. Troll in basic expert book. Thin and rubbery, loathsome trolls stand nearly 8 feet tall. They are intelligent and prefer humanoid creatures over all other foods. Trolls live in caves, dungeons, wastelands, and in ruined dwellings of the humanoids they have slain and eaten. See, this is really nice because, again, it tells you what the heck are trolls doing out there in the world. That's what they're doing. They're going around eating people and living in their their old habitations if they can. Trolls are strong and rend their opponents with talons and sharp teeth. The troll has the power of regeneration. The troll will begin to heal. Okay, we got that. The things are basically about the same. We got the crawling. The limbs will kind of try to reconnect. The troll cannot regenerate damage from fire acid. Okay, so Shadowdark is in line with that, right? So then the cauterizing will work per the expert troll, the BX troll, because then it says it cannot regenerate damage from fire acid. So I wonder how that would work with a limb that's been chopped. But I don't. Maybe that doesn't even work to your benefit, because unless you cauterize both, then I guess the other limb will just create a new troll. In game turns, this means that unless totally consumed by fire acid, the troll will eventually regenerate completely. Well, how does that work? So I guess it means unless the troll is totally consumed. I don't know. Well, maybe cauterization won't work because that's not totally damage. I don't know how to rule it. I gotta have to think about it. If reduced to 0 hit points, other than fire or acid damage, the troll will heal enough to fight again in 2 to 12 rounds. And morale in parentheses applies only when the troll is attacked by fire or acid. So its morale is based, it's 10 unless acid, in which case it's a little bit more fearful. So there we go. The cauterizing is interesting because it says it won't get back damage from fire acid, but it also says that unless it's totally consumed, it will eventually regenerate completely. So maybe the cauterization would stop in the short term, but not the long term. So, you know, if you cauterized it, you cut off a troll's arm and then cauterize the whatever's left, maybe it would be slower. Brian Smith says, just run around town throwing troll toes in the sewers, and bam, you got unleashed an army of trolls on the place. Yeah. Yes. That theoretically would absolutely work. Though, do they have the same brain? It'd be an interesting, man, some interesting ideas here. If you did do that, are the brains all connected? Does it become one sort of troll intelligence? Do they have to share the brain power? Do they have the same identity? There'd be some fun stuff. Are they like newborns, or do they just all pop up with the knowledge of the parent troll, like troll vampirism kind of thing? Good stuff. Well, I hope this was, I don't know, fun. It was fun. It was fun. Like I said, I just heard about Shadowdark. Well, I'm not heard about it. I heard about it, you know, a while ago, but Shadowdark kind of back in the news. It scored a bunch of Ennies, and then reading up on conversations and people talking about how much they love the monster, the way monsters were displayed and laid out. So I wanted to check it out. Unfortunately, I am missing, it looks like, part of the secret sauce, which might be the encounter tables. I do like the idea of how they're presented. It's very clean. Like I said, I think if I were going to say, what could I do to improve this a little bit? If you're looking at doing some Shadowdark materials and you want to know, what does Todd from Hex Press want to add here? I'd like a little bit of just a clue as to kind of what their place is in the world, their role in the ecosystem. What are they after? Just a little bit, something to just give somebody a little bit more inspiration about like what to do with this creature if it just was shown up on the page. But no complaints. I did think it was interesting to look back at some of these different editions and different works and see how they present monsters, how things have changed, yada, yada, yada. We'll see. Ian says the first troll was actually super intelligent, but its incredible intelligence has been split among all its regenerated clones. Yeah, that would totally be awesome. Imagine if that super intelligent troll was still out there somewhere, just very old, very wise, but just kind of maybe even just hateful of its offspring from these different bits. Oh, Fluffy says that trolls reproduce by budding. That's what they're getting at. It could be. I like it. We should do a troll jam, like iterate on some troll ideas some month. Maybe in the winter, if I can remember, we could do a troll jam. Get some new trolls out there. All right, folks, I got to run. I should be back at Studio A on the morrow. Not sure what we're going to do. If you have ideas, let me know. Obviously, I'm going to be shutting down the stream in a few minutes, so letting me know here is probably not the best idea, but if you can find me on social media or in the comments actually on the video would work fine, or wherever you could find me. Let me know if there's anything you'd like. I finally got a hold of somebody at Chaosium, and I think that means, fingers crossed, that I'll have some Pendragon in our future. I hope. So we'll see how that goes. But other than that, have a great rest of your day, night, whenever you end up watching or listening to this. Game on, everybody. And I'll talk to you later. Bye now.